All right, let's discuss the very hated Annabelle, a spinoff from The Conjuring. And this came out in 2014, a year after The Conjuring, so they've got this out there pretty quickly. And this stars Annabelle Wallis from *Malignant*. Funny that her first name is Annabelle. I wonder if that's why they hired her. And this was directed by John Leonetti, who was a cinematographer for Conjuring, Dead Silence, and some other James Wan films, Insidious, Insidious 2, Piranha, and most importantly, Child's Play 3, one of my favorite movies. So, and he directed other films also, like Wish Upon, and one of the Mortal Kombat movies, and Butterfly Effect 2, which I've never seen. I didn't know Butterfly Effect had a sequel. And this was written by Gary Dauberman, who has written a lot of horror movies. I think he wrote those It movies, he wrote the two sequels, and I think he directed Annabelle Comes Home. And this movie is about a couple who have a baby on the way, and they get this Annabelle doll, and then this crazy cult attacks their neighbors and them, and one of the cultists dies with the doll in her hands, and she gets the doll possessed by this demon known as Ram. So this was my second or third time watching it, and I've always thought that this movie was just okay, generic, didn't really care for it that much. But on this watch, I was surprisingly into it. I was way more into it than I've ever been before. I think this movie is hated on way too much. It's not that bad. Getting into what I like about the movie, I like the whole setup. The first 20-25 minutes I thought was great. It's very dark. You got this whole Manson family attacking the house next door. There's a really cool long one shot take from house to outside, going back into the house, things moving in the background, very subtle scares like that in the opening, and it's bloody and violent in the opening, and it's probably the most violent part of the movie and the whole Annabelle trilogy. This is probably the most violent of the Annabelle movies. It's been a while since I've seen Creation. That one might actually be more violent than this one, but who cares? But still, great, awesome opening setup. I liked all of it, and some good cinematography and camera work. Like I said, there was a really cool long one take, and I thought the characters were fantastic. I liked the way they're written. Their decision making made sense. They don't do anything stupid, like Annabelle Comes Home, and they had a wonderful chemistry. I liked these actors. I liked the woman from *Malignant*. It was cool to see her in this. I forgot she was in this movie, so I was like, holy shit, it's the chick from *Malignant*. She looks completely different here because she's got a late 60s, early 70s hairstyle. It's a period piece. It takes place in 1970, I think, according to the newspaper I saw. So, yeah, 1970, it's a year before the events of The Conjuring. And so, yeah, she just had a different look, and I forgot she was in this. But, yeah, she's good in this. I loved her husband, and I love that everyone believes her. It's not one of those situations in a million other movies where they're like, I swear something's going on, and they're like, you're just crazy the whole time. No, the husband believes her. Everything she says to do, he does it, no argument. Oh, you want to get rid of the doll? Okay, let's get rid of it. You want to move? Let's move. He doesn't argue at all. He's very supportive. And then when they get these new neighbors, this woman who lost her daughter, she believes them right away. The priest believes them right away. There's none of that generic shit in all the other movies where they're just oh, you're crazy, and they never believe them until it's way too late. So I'm glad none of that shit's here. And the score was really great by Joseph Bashara, who does a lot of James Wan films, *Malignant*, and the Insidious movies, the Conjuring films, and I think he does all three Annabelle films. He does this one, and it kicks ass. I like the score. He always makes a scary, suspenseful score. And I thought it had a nice pace. It was never dull, boring to me. So I was just really into it. The characters, I just thought, really carried the film. But as for dislikes, I thought that the second half, but mainly just the third act, it got kind of generic. It goes into familiar territory. It doesn't take a lot of risk. Plays it pretty safe. There's a baby character that they're never going to kill, but they pretend like they're killing it a couple of times. And then they're like, no, we didn't do that. But, that's what the other movies do too. Like in Annabelle 3, they do the same thing there. So if you're going to complain about it here, you got to complain about it there. I'm just sick of everyone acting like this is the worst one, and they always point out the same shit that Annabelle 3 does. But they just complain about it here. Like, oh, this one's got generic jump scares, and it's got, stupid this and that. It's like, well, so does 3. But everyone loves 3. Everywhere I look, everyone's like, 3 is the best. But I'm like, but it has the same things that you're complaining about here. It has way more jump scares, and it has characters that do way more stupid things. I didn't see anything stupid in this movie, character decision-wise, but in that movie, it's chock full of them. It doesn't get as crazy as I would have wanted it to. There's not a whole lot of scares, and good ones and creative ones. There's just a few scares here and there that are just borrowed from other movies, like Shock. There's a scare from Shock. There's just the doors opening and closing again and again. It's like, okay, we've seen this. So there should have been a lot more happening and a lot more that we haven't seen before. And we just get like fake outs and jump scares, stingers from time to time. And I'm never a fan of that, but this whole trilogy is guilty of doing that. I also would have preferred if this movie had more like spooky atmosphere to it. It's mainly all daytime, which some people might like. Horror during the day, it's scarier because it's unexpected. Bad shit usually happens at night, but a lot of the movie seems to take place during the day after the opening setup. After the Manson shit that happens at night, everything else seems to be happening during the day until the climax, but there's not a whole lot of spooky atmosphere that you get in like Annabelle Creation and Annabelle Comes Home with like the fog, and it's a lot more night scenes in those movies, and it just has darker lighting and like a darker like mood. So final thoughts, I think this movie is not as bad as everyone says. Yes, it's a bit generic and has some lazy jump scares periodically, but I think the performances and the character writing are strong enough to carry the film. So when it comes to Annabelle, I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5. So yeah, that's the end of Annabelle. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's the worst one of the trilogy? I don't. I think Annabelle Comes Home is easily the worst one. I can't stand the characters in that movie, especially Danielle. I just think they're stupid. It has 1,000 more jump scares that just don't work, and I hate the tone of that movie. It's the comedy of the franchise. This one's much more serious and dark, and I don't want a goofy Annabelle movie. So that I can't stand the humor in Annabelle Comes Home. And it's not even good humor. Like, oh, Bob's got balls. Like, that's just so cringy. I fucking hate that character too. I can't stand that movie. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this movie and the trilogy as a whole? How would you rank them? Let me know in the comments below. And feel free to hit the like button if you want, and become a subscriber today if you want by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.